Hello, good evening. Welcome to Free Talk with Mr. B. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me on this platform today. I'm really
It's
looking forward to the conversation.
it's a pleasure and it's a relaxing conversation because it's free talk. It's free talk with Mr. B, and we get to be as free, do whatever we want, say whatever we want.
Absolutely.
How do you pronounce your first name?
It is Dr. Shauli Mukherjee.
So, Dr. Shauli, it's very nice to have you on. And please forgive me as a Westerner if I mess up your name. I want you to tell everyone about you, whatever you're free to say.
Sure. And first of all, I would like to say that you have pronounced my name absolutely correctly. So it is the correct pronunciation.
Okay.
And uh, wishing you a very, very good evening from India. And
All
I'm really
right.
excited to be on this platform today to share my insights on certain snippets of my life's journey with you. So, to start off with, I would like to say that it has almost been 23 years that I have been in the education sector now. I have been the principal as well as the founder principal of some of the reputed international schools in West Bengal, India. And some of the schools had been exclusively founded by me as the founder principal, among which I would definitely like to mention one school, which is STEM World School, which was the first STEM school in West Bengal. So that also happens to be my brainchild. So, after spending almost 2 decades in the field of school leadership, very recently I have stepped into the domain of higher education, where currently I'm the director of School of Education and Dean Student Affairs at one of the premier universities of Eastern India, and that is Adamas University.
Nice. Very nice.
Additionally, I am also associated with premier organizations across India as well as globally in senior advisory capacity. And apart from that, as an inspirational speaker, I almost speak regularly in numerous national and international forums about topics pertaining to education, mental health issues, youth empowerment, women empowerment, and allied issues. So this is a brief about myself.
And no wonder you said you were only going to give a snippet because we will definitely have to have you on more to bring up subjects that are passionate to you more and more. Um, right now, something changed in our world, and I say the world because I know it's not just here in the US or when I'm in Dubai, but education hasn't changed, correct?
Absolutely so. So I keep on saying this in numerous platforms. As a passionate educationist, this is definitely a matter of concern for me, and I'm sure this would be uh, something which a lot of other educationists who are quite revolutionary in this field will definitely resonate with. That our histories have changed, our geographies have changed, but sadly and unfortunately, our education system is still the same. It is still that one size fits all education structure, which is a direct byproduct of the 19th century industrial revolution. So
Yes.
nothing major has changed in the education domain.
So
And that
if
is a serious matter of concern.
right, because if I get you right, I think you are a type of person who wants to change it.
Very much so.
Okay.
I am extremely passionate about this particular issue. And I'm a kind of a person who believe that our current education system does not require any reformation. Because when we speak about reformation, what we are trying to indicate is that we are trying to mend a broken model. We are trying to repair a broken model. So our education system does not require any tweak or any, small changes or repair. That's not what our current education system requires. It requires a revolution, and nothing short of a revolution will work for our current education system. This is something which I passionately believe in.
And I sense that when I read some of your information. Did the pandemic and everyone stuck at home, as it were, help? Did it help highlight? Did it help hinder? Or did it help accentuate?
I have actually a very, very different perspective on the same. And I believe that while while the global pandemic has caused a great havoc in the lives of many, causing loss of lives, loss of jobs, and whatnot. But in terms of education, it has done something marvelous and wonderful, I would say. And I would like to say that thanks to COVID times, which had actually forced and compelled all of us to think and act outside the box.
Yes.
It has brought about changes which have been long overdue. So we have been speaking about these kind of changes in various global platforms, in conferences and summits, and we all wanted those changes to happen. But in reality, the changes never happened. But COVID has given all of us a push, and now we do not have any other option apart from embracing wholeheartedly the wonderful changes that COVID has brought about.
And
I'm very, very positive about it.
And I'm very glad for that too, because I am, in my energy industry, I'm an educator. I teach and train how oil and oil systems operate and work, so I can get a staff ready for that. I would walk into a room and they would all be anticipating a textbook. They would all be anticipating questions and answers. And I approach things very differently. I approach it with experiences. And it says, we don't live in the old school days where you have to rehearse and memorize something, because I can go into my pocket, pull out my phone, and find anything I'm looking for. So I wanted them to have more of an understanding of how to go into their pocket and find what they're looking for. How do you see this difference, what every young person or someone has in their pockets, per se?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, see, Mr. B, what I feel is that the future of education would look something like this. The IQ that we, before that, I would just like to say that one of the major problems in our current education system is the fact that we give too much of priority and too much of importance to only one kind of quotient, and that is intelligence quotient. So everywhere it is IQ, IQ, and IQ. What about EQ? What about emotional quotient? When significant research has proved time and again that more than 80% of your success, be it in your professional life or in your personal life, it actually depends on your EQ and not on your IQ. But even then, our education system gives a lot of privilege, priority, and importance to IQ. So the future of education will, this is how I visualize the future of education, that the IQ will be on the screen. It will be on the interactive screen. So the IQ will be on the screen, and the EQ will be based on the community-based activities for which we would require schools, colleges, and higher education institutions.
But doesn't
So
this
this
sound?
is exactly what the future of education will be.
Does this sound like the old days, like real old days, what we call the old days? I'm not sure. You're a lot younger than I am, but I just, for some reason, I feel that's the old days. It's like going back to what should have been, or should have been.
See, what I feel is that as an educator, none of us will be able to compete in terms of content, in terms of knowledge. None of us will be able to compete with Google, right?
Right.
So we will not be able to do that. And so it is highly preferable that the IQ should be on screen and the EQ, that is the emotional quotient, the social interaction, which is also such a very important and pertinent aspect of real education. So that should be based on the community engagements that should be taken up by the real new age schools.
Okay, because it sounds like it removes a certain level of competitiveness too, because we were groomed and coded to be competitive through our IQs. But the difference with the emotions reduces the advantage and competitiveness, but it probably sounds like it's necessary because a lot of the schools we're going through now in the US spends a lot of time with emotional learning in that they're making more group learning effective. How can you solve a group problem compared to be individualist? So I think I know what it looks like, but how would you describe that EQ portion looking like? I mean, let's leave the IQ part aside. What is an emotional, or to everybody in our audiences, what would it look like?
So before I would answer that question, I would just like to state that so very correctly you have pointed out the difference between the competitive spirit and the collaborative spirit.
Yeah.
So I would just like to say one thing here, that since childhood, be it as parents or as educators, we always tend to tell our children that it is so very important to come first in everything,
right?
Be it in academics or in sports or in anything. So you have to compete, you have to come first in everything. So competition, or rather cutthroat competition, has been, embedded in our DNA.
Yes.
As it seems, On the contrary, if we happen to, introspect a little, we will find out that the two important skill sets that are required to thrive in the 21st century happens to be collaboration and cooperation, and not cutthroat competition. So if that is so, then why does our current education system give so much of importance and prominence to competition and not to collaboration and cooperation? You were talking about group learning. You were talking about the young learners all coming together and collaborating and then creating a collaborative learning atmosphere. I feel in order to do that, first of all, the educators also need a paradigm shift of their mindset. And what COVID has brought about very, very clearly is the fact that as educators, as teachers, we need to collaborate with each other. We cannot work in silos anymore. And as it is rightly said, that as teachers, the greatest resource that each one of us can have is each other. And without collaboration, our perspective is only limited. Our growth is only limited to our own perspective. So collaboration and engagement, they both happen to be the key factors in 21st century.
Yes. Because in 2019, and I was in Erbil, Kurdistan, and my class was 30 students each. I think they had a thought that I was going to run the class like a university, but I had students who were fresh out of university, while others that had many levels of experience in the group. So I broke the group up and I start moving them around every day based on what I think I wanted them to learn from their supervisor, from their mechanic, from their seniors, person, and so on. And around the end of the week, in some of the groups, I would have them come up into the front of the group class like a group and present to the rest of the class what they understood I was showing to them. And I never, ever segregated them into any one individual. So there was no, I became first in my class type of behavior. So I don't know if I was reflecting your thought patterns you're presenting here, but it's been my style because in my industry, we have to have heavy reliance on each other. But that's just my industry.
Absolutely so. And I'm so happy that you have mentioned it. So, but unfortunately, I would say that this is very much missing in our real classroom scenario, where still the teacher is the sage on the stage. And, apart from being the sage on the stage, now the time has come when the teacher or the educator has to be a guide by the side.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he has to be a co-learner. Has to be a co-learner in the entire process of learning. So learning is something which is not only for the students, it is also for the educators. So the real learning is when an educator thinks of himself or herself as a co-learner in the entire process of learning. So definitely the process that you said is that this is something which is so very close to my heart as well, that, we can divide the entire class into segments, into groups, and we can allot certain topics to them. Let them do the research, let them come up with their own understanding and let them present in front of the entire class what they have understood about the entire thing, rather than indoctrinating right at the very beginning about the fact that as an educator, I know it all and you need to listen from me.
Right.
So that there has to be a shift. There has to be a paradigm shift from this attitude to a collaborative learning ecosystem.
So the managers that hired me asked me, why don't I have a test or an exam? I was like, why? Every day in our field, we don't have tests. We need to have an understanding. So if there's an emergency, our test has zero effect. But if we have a proper understanding, we'll know how to manage or mitigate the problem we're facing and solve it. So I'm not going to teach someone or put in my classroom, pass a test and you're fine. I wanted them to have a proper understanding. And I hope, if I'm not approaching it right, maybe you will let me know based on your experience. But I just think that's the approach of being different. I hope you agree.
Absolutely so. Absolutely okay. So. And I would just like to mention here, just like to add here, so happy that you have mentioned about the tests and the assessments. So standardized testing is an integral component of our current education system. But we tend to forget one essential fact, that standardized tests rely heavily on the learner's ability to conform and to comply. It does not give any leverage to the learner's ability to create or to innovate.
Right.
So if you really want to raise a generation of learners who are creative, who are innovative, who can think out of the box, and if that is exactly the kind of a generation that we would like to raise, we have to come out of that mindset which only harps on standardized testing. Because we have to move away from that mentality, from that mindset, which relies heavily on a learner's ability to conform, comply, and compete, and so very less on the learner's ability to create and to innovate.
Yeah. So I know I'm collaborating with you now, but again, I have to tell my audience, we didn't talk about this before, but it is very true about approaches and different approaches. We live in a world where everyone would like to tell us something is right or wrong. But when it comes to learning and understanding the approach to education that's different, many, many times the answer is not right or wrong, or you don't need an answer. I always encourage my group to get to the process, how you get from point A to point B, not the answer is not what's important. And then there's different levels of competency, but I push them to the highest level really fast because I want them to start teaching the class what they understand. And a teacher is the one who tend to have the highest level of competency, that they understand what they're talking about. And so I pushed my students there right away. I said, there's no need to go through each of the steps. Get to the point where you can tell me what you understand. Automatically, you're a teacher by way of doing that. So I don't know, maybe I've been different for a long time. Did I miss my
Yes,
calling?
you are. And I'm so happy. I'm so happy that, our thoughts resonate with each other in such a wonderful manner. And also, I would like to state here that don't you think that our current education system gives a lot of emphasis on the learner's ability to come up with one correct answer to every problem.
Yeah.
I mean, they do not encourage the capacity of a learner when that learner or he or she comes up with a meaningful question. So encouraging questions, rather encouraging interesting, divergent questions, that is what something that we should do, rather than applauding one correct answer for each and every problem. So this is also something which is there in my mind for quite a long time, that if you see that each and every child is born inherently creative and innately curious. So the child is born as an inquisitive being. He or she has questions about everything around him on earth.
Right.
And he's a natural moonshot thinker right from the very beginning. But then, along with the age and along with the improper indoctrination that happens to the child forgets that natural ability to question, and the child feels that it's my moral duty to comply and to conform and not to question. So that is the sad part of our education system, wherein we have to encourage the young learners to come up. I mean, they are brimming with new ideas. They're so full of new ideas, innovative ideas, creative ideas, and we have to encourage that creative potential in them, wherein they can have that ability and they can have that, courage to come up with questions.
Yes, and for parents out there, we're not telling them to discontinue what they're doing in anything, because all of our youths, all of our children, they need all of the tools necessary to be creative. So continue to educate them in whatever way and means available. But I just encourage them not to hinder their creativity. And we can talk for a long time about this, because I told someone else that I allowed my son to be an artist because I did not want to push him into a mold that I desire. And I know as parents, we want our children to be doctors and lawyers and technicians and make a lot of money and be successful in their lives. And so, but when we define what those successes are by way of the old system, I would call it the old system, although this is my 60th year, so I'm calling everything old. We're just hoping that they would give them some freedom to explore and give them some freedom to be creative, as you say, and don't be afraid to change the system or support changes to the system. I wouldn't want to say it exactly, but we should stop pushing our kids to get the highest grades. Sometimes the lowest grades in the class are the ones who become the billionaires, millionaires. We just can't tell.
Absolutely. And along with that, I would like to mention that we also have to stop stigmatizing failures and mistakes.
Correct.
We have to make our learners as well as our educators realize the essential fact that both mistakes and failures are an essential component of a learning experience.
Yes.
So we, Mr. B, we come from a kind of a culture where unfortunately we celebrate the board results, the mark sheets, the report cards, the scores, and the grades. So we always try to, celebrate the outcome and not the process.
Right.
But we have to celebrate the process, and we have to realize that it is only while going through that process, the child, through multiple failures and mistakes and hurdles and setbacks and obstacles, only through those things, the child actually evolves as a complete and a whole human being.
For sure.
So we have to, and in order to develop that growth mindset in our children, as educators and parents, where the children are able to come out of their comfort zone and they're able to explore, they're able to, do a lot of adventurous, activities, and something which speaks very clearly to their passion and interest. In order to do that, I think, firstly, the parents as well as the educators, they need to stop prioritizing on the outcome, and they need to focus more on the process.
Yes. You have a lot of subjects that you're passionate about in addition to this one. Would you be willing to come on at times to capture the one subject that you feel passionate about at that time?
Absolutely. I would love to. I'm very passionate about youth empowerment, mental health issues, women empowerment. So I would love to come on your platform again.
And I want to hear more about that women empowerment in your region and, of course, the youth issues and the mental health issues. So I look forward to that. In this scenario I'm going to build for you in closing, the highest level of educators in your region in India, and I guess they're accepting what you're saying, but you spoke to them clearly about this vision, but you wanted to leave the last paragraph with them in words for them to think about the action they will take. What would you tell them would be the next step actions so that they will go home and think about those actions? What would you tell them?
I think that we should all come out of the mentality of one size fits all education system, which is a byproduct of not only the 19th century industrial revolution, but also roots with the prison mentality. Previously, the prisoners, the convicts, were made to remain in different cells. That is exactly what we are also doing to our children, to our students in the classroom scenario, where we are making them sit in rows and columns. So that is exactly what we're doing to those cheerful little kids who are brimming with ideas and who are so very much enthusiastic about collaborating, about moving here and there and sharing their insights. So we should stop doing that to our kids. We have to understand that they have enormous capabilities, enormous capacities. And the last thought that I would like to leave with is that we often make a mistake of calling ourselves as teachers of history or teachers of geography or teachers of English or teachers of maths.
Right.
No, that is not what we are. We are not the teachers who are teaching subjects. We are the teachers who are teaching the children, and the children are essentially human beings.
Right,
so the human element in education has to be retained, or it has to be brought back for the benefit of the entire young generation of 21st century. So try and bring back that human element in education. That
That's
is what I would like to say.
very, very nice, because they have some call to action. They can go back and take a look at phrases and ideologies that they put in the structure in the school program, and rephrase it. Maybe even change their names from the math teacher to the teacher, to the student teacher. Maybe even ask the kids to arrange the classroom formation instead of the boxed lined up formation,
Yes,
and so on. So those are quick, easy, low-hanging fruit actions that can be taken. I really, really appreciate how you said that, and what action you're giving these educators and administrators to take with them and to take back. Thank you so, so much for being on this program.
It's absolutely a pleasure. It was such a wonderful experience interacting with you, and especially when I found out that a lot of my ideas, visions, and ideologies they resonate with yours. With what you also think about. So that was really amazing. I would
Okay,
say.
without collaborating, I like that. Now, I have a different reason why I did it, because it's my industry has a life and death, imminent life and death issue, and so the reliance on each other is detrimental in the way we do things. So I did not want to be so mechanical. In the classroom, we are not faced with a life and death with preteens and high schoolers and so on. So it's a little different, but I can see how applicable those changes are from my industry. It would have been better to get the people I receive prepared for these life and death scenarios in my heavy industrial side. Of course, it's a little different if they're going into an office, but it would have been still nice to get them ready to collaborate in team efforts, or to set up the office in a way that's more collaborative. So yeah, we do need to prepare our children way better for the modern day work and the modern day education than we did in the old day. So thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me on this platform. It has really been a very, very wonderful experience.
Thank you. We'll talk again, and definitely arrange for the subjects that's preferable to us and as they come up, because you have a wealth of information and knowledge, and we'll continue to share all over your region this information.
Absolutely. Looking forward.
Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you too.
Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Thank you so much.